Hello and welcome back to RageGamingVideos Nightreign. Today we're doing a week of things you didn't know for Nightreign as usual, but this time featuring our newest Everdark boss, Caligo. This one's a bit all over the place, maybe a bit controversial for a few reasons, which is unfortunate after the mixed feelings about Augur. But the thing about this buggy one is it's not like sentient pest that causes you to not be able to fight anymore. It's more that Caligo helps you. It kills itself. It can be extremely weak. Its armor mechanic just breaks on itself, or it just leaves. So all of that can be quite beneficial to you, I guess, but it's unfortunate. So we're going to dive in and hopefully you learn something new. Now obviously there are new fight details here. We have a few new attacks like the charging up frost tornadoes or the way that it generates these ice crystals that explode out in frost around themselves. You want to run from them. There are improved attacks. Say the tail attacks are a lot more scary with the ice generation on there. The flying ice barrage, that is massive now, much more deadly because of it. You've got the claw swipes, just generally generating a lot more ice, which are quite a problem as we'll discuss with this video. But the main thing here is a new armor mechanic that causes Caligo to encase itself in armor, and it has different parts that you have to break through. Break enough and you actually get a stagger, and it's pretty cool as a mechanic in my opinion. You've got damage reduction, so you got to get through it, but it recovers that armor, so it's a balance. All the same, it is a very familiar fight, and you're still getting the benefits of fire, and with the armor mechanic and in general Calico, you want a lot of stagger. So Nightfarers like Wilder and of course Raider with big bonk heavy weapons, you could even do it with Guardian, jump attack spam, power stance spam, you know, it's the familiar stuff that's going to work super well here, but if you can get that tinge of fire on top, obviously it's going to be great. I did find it interesting that it doesn't seem like it's doing its super moves of the base fight anymore, which I think is quite strange. I'm talking about the ice shroud that occurs. You don't know where Caligo's gone, you got to find it, and either you've got to hide behind a pillar before the big explosion, or you need to get close and under before it drops the whole ice ceiling down on you, which is super cool, and it's gone from the fighter with Sim. I guess it does break up the flow of the fight, and this is really cool by comparison, but it's always a shame to lose spectacle style attacks like that. So that's just a quick overview and thoughts on the fight there, but there's quite a lot of bugs and glitches that people are discussing right now. Let's take a look at this footage from this player here, where everything's fine, and we're seeing how Caligo's charging itself up with ice, getting some armor again. It generates the armor and takes some nasty damage with Sim, and then it flies off and takes some nasty damage, as you can see. It's basically taking full armor break damage multiple times in a row. Couldn't tell you why. At a guess, I would assume that it thinks that the armor is breaking and so it's taking that damage, but then it just keeps repeating it. So you may have experienced this yourself. We're seeing a lot of people discuss how this fight feels ridiculously easy for some reason. And I guess it's because of this glitch where Caligo's taking way more damage than it should. The armor should not be breaking like that. But that's not the only example of this weird buggy fight that's going on. It's not just the armor mechanic that's occurring. Here's a clip from Murtag4 on the Reddit, hope that's an Inheritance Cycle reference, where everything's fine. The fight's continuing. Admittedly, Caligo's pretty low health, but then it just says, Night Lord fell, even though Caligo is very clearly right there, very clearly still has health, very clearly still using mechanics, and is actively fighting this player, dealing damage to them. All this player has to do in this moment is not die, because in a matter of seconds the game's going to close and fade to black, show the victory screen, give the rewards, GG I guess. That one doesn't make any sense because, yeah, the armor break mechanic is a really cool, unique one. They've obviously got some issues with it, and you can see how it misfiring would hurt Caligo and damage the fight in that way. But this is just something completely different. Anyway, if you are looking to fight this monster properly, do the boss fight in a real way, I'd strongly recommend Wilder and Raider and Guardian to a lesser extent with big heavy weapons, so you can just constantly stagger and break through parts of the armor and, lean into the mechanic of that fight. Ideally, if you get something like the cranial candle weapon, which is going to be both big, blunt, and maybe power stance slam, that will also generate fire, then that's going to be perfect. People are saying that Caligo feels a bit too weak and too low health, but I do wonder whether that's just in contrast to the bloated health that was Augur, or maybe we need to be somewhere in the middle on both of those fights. Either way, I think this one's a lot more mechanically interesting than Augur, easily. Right, let's get into some proper tips that you can use for this fight though, like the fact that set seeds in this game are a thing. It's not that RNG. It's something I've talked about here and there, but just to really focus on it for a moment, They kind of told us that this is going to be a roguelike, and it's going to be procedurally generated and a different run every time. And it just hasn't turned out that way. There are, as it turns out, a limited number of seeds, and you're just going to get one of those seeds. Which seed are you going to be given? Well, it's based on, of course, what Night Lord did you pick? Now you're in the limited list of potential RNG map layouts and invasions and potential things that can happen. And then this is further honed in on if you've got a specific shifting earth, and obviously we can force them. Now, how many of those actually are there? Well, it depends. There's claims that if you're fighting Everdark Caligo with the mountaintop shifting earth active as well, there's basically like about 5 potential seeds. And so with that in mind, you can actually make a plan based on the limited amount of seeds there are. Which one did you get? What should you expect? And how can you prep for it? It's pretty extreme, but it will be useful as we're going to look at. But because of this, we can actually see a list that's formed of what the possible events and invasions are based on the Night Lord that you're currently doing. So as it lists, you've got Morgott invasion, only possible if you're currently going against Adele, Noster, or Hjolstor as the Night Lord. You can only have the Augur invasion if you're going against Noster, Caligo, or Hjolstor. You can only have the Noster plague if you're going against Augur, Libra, Hjolstor, or the Libra curse for Fulgor, Caligo, Hjolstor, which lines up with what we're about to look at. Other super rare stuff like your Frenzy Tower, that's only Noster and Libra, so you've never seen that. It might just be you're not running those bosses that much. You could get an extra Night boss if you're going against Adele or Fulgor. The Night Horde comes via Gladius, Maris, and Fulgor, which I've experienced. The Meteor Strike, which I've never seen, is apparently Gladius, Adele, and Caligo. The Walking Mausoleum, which I saw in my first days of Nightreign, but have never seen since then, is only against Maris and Caligo, so you might see it this week. And then the extra difficult Sorcerer's Rise, that's Noster and Libra only. So how do you feel about this? Obviously that's good information to know, but it does really suck. This quote-unquote roguelike isn't that RNG. To be fair, there's not a lot of roguelike elements at all. We have a very clear defined meta and pathing and understanding of what's valuable, because it's a little bit too consistent overall, I think. I do hope we see some major changes to this concept, maybe with the DLC or other updates, but it's important to be aware of. But let's discuss how you can make this relevant to Everdark Caligo. And this post from Ban Aveda, talking about if on night 1 you've got Caligo, Everdark, and Mountaintops, you face the Grafted Monarch, aka of course Godric, then you are guaranteed to get a Libra Curse on day 2. Which is important to know, since it requires 35,000 runes to pay off, otherwise your health is going to be chunked out for the rest of the run. This player suggests that there is a 1 in 5 chance that every time you do Everdark Caligo with Mountaintops as your shifting earth, you could have a 1 in 5 chance of seeing Godric on night 1, which means you know you're going to have that Libra invade on day 2. This is an interesting idea because imagine every Everdark boss, we have like a meta shifting earth that you want. Mountaintops is an obvious one for Caligo because anti-dragon effects, anti-frostbite and such. It makes complete sense that you want Mountaintops. So you're going to run it every time. Turns out there's a 1 in 5 chance that you're going to get one of the 5 seeds or something like that. Letting you basically pre-plan your path, which is, cool and lame at the same time. Alright, let's talk about a very important mechanic to do with the ice, shards, and frostbite in general, which are obviously going to occur in this fight. Here's a clip from Hashbrown on Reddit that highlighted the fact that you do not have iframes properly as you're landing as Guardian. At least that's what it appears here. So as this player lands on some ice shards, it backfires, interrupting the ult. And what extra sucks about this is the fact that the ult is still completely consumed and there's no revive. So I suppose the tip here is, as Guardian, if you're going for the ultimate revive in the Caligo context, try not to land on the spikes, you'll regret it. But let me add to this topic. Frostbite, as a status, it will trigger even during iframes in Nightreign. It's important to know that. You may have experienced this a lot with the Mountaintops, with the runs you've been doing. The boss there, the Ice Dragon, it does this constant aura of frostbite that builds up like crazy, and worse as you're on the way to get the power. If it goes off, it's gonna go off no matter what you're doing. Mid-roll, or say using an ultimate with iframes, it's still gonna hit you, or at least cause the effect. You may have experienced this yourself then, but as one player has shown, you can actually use this to a massive advantage. War Marky posted this on Reddit, revealing that Duchess's ult, even when interrupted, doesn't get consumed. So you're triggering the iframes, you're triggering the invisibility, and you're being interrupted by that frostbite proc that's going off despite that. As you can see, it doesn't actually cause the ult to go on cooldown, which means every single frostbite that's about to build up, you can iframe every single time. Duchess is going to be able to use this little tech to get way more ults throughout the fight, have less aggro in general, help the team out massively. If you've got a Duchess on your team doing this then in this fight while it works, you can have a lot of invisibility. It should make revive super easy. Yeah, should prove super useful. One final topic for Caligo then that should be important to know is that frost resistance doesn't really do anything against the super frost buildup. The massive AoE that's going to absolutely devastate you, frost resistance isn't going to do anything. This was discussed actually by someone called Appropriate Tap on Reddit, who got very lucky, found the fingerprint shield with 120 frost resistance on it, then duped it so they'd stacked that up. Then with some dormant powers giving about 50 extra resistance, they had about 350 frost resistance. So kind of insane, right? Despite that, they were still one shot by the big frost buildup, the super AoE, so it simply didn't matter. It would appear then that that damage is actually more magic damage than it is worrying about frost and frost resistance. So while the mountaintops and the dormant powers and the passives there are going to really help with frost res, awesome, I would not invest or worry too much about building up frost resistance before that. Physical damage negation and magic damage negation in specific is probably going to go a lot further for you in this fight, which I think is important to know. But yeah, for now that covers everything I want to talk about for things you might not know about Everdark Caligo for this special episode. If there's anything you'd like to add to today's topics, or maybe just make a suggestion for the series, then let us know down in the comments below. But for now, I've been Hollow, you've been you, and thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.